I honestly didn't expect House of the Dragon Season 3 Episode 7 to go this far. At first, it feels like another slow political episode. Rhaenyra is desperate. Daemon is still missing. Aemond is becoming more dangerous, and the war seems to be moving toward another battle. But then everything starts collapsing at once. Dragons fight dragons. Aegon finally gets one of the biggest moments of his entire story. Rhaenyra makes a decision that could completely change her relationship with Daemon. And by the end, we get a revelation that makes the next episode feel genuinely terrifying. This wasn't just a setup episode. It was the moment the dance finally started becoming a nightmare. The episode opens with Helaena, and immediately something feels wrong. She's standing outside, surrounded by sunlight, looking almost peaceful. For a moment, it feels like we're seeing a completely different version of her life. Then she wakes up, and that scene tells us something important about Helena's connection to the supernatural. She's not simply having strange dreams anymore. She's beginning to understand what those visions mean, and Rhaenyra knows it too. That's what makes their conversation so interesting. Rhaenyra wants Helaena to ride Dreamfire in a battle, but Helaena knows exactly what that means. When she talks about being with Dreamfire being too much, it feels less like fear of riding a dragon and more like fear of what she might see when she's connected to it. And considering everything Helaena has already predicted, that becomes extremely disturbing. But while Helaena is trapped by visions of the future, Rhaenyra is becoming trapped by the present. Her position is getting worse. She needs Daemon. She needs the Dragon Riders. She needs the support of the people around her. And most importantly, she needs some kind of victory. But the longer Daemon stays at Harrenhal, the more desperate she becomes. And then we get one of the episode's biggest shocks. Rhaenyra discovers that Rhaena is the one who is bonded with Sheepstealer. This completely changes Rhaena's story. For most of the season, she's been treated almost like a character waiting for her moment. But now she has something Rhaenyra desperately needs, a dragon. And not just any dragon. Sheepstealer is a wild dragon, which makes Rhaena's connection to him incredibly important. But the moment is also tragic because this entire storyline is connected to Jace's death. Rhaenyra is already dealing with the loss of her son, and now the dragon that could have helped her war effort is connected to another member of her family. And then the episode gives us the sequence that, for me, completely steals the show. The dragon confrontation. Syrax, sea smoke, Caraxes, Sheepstealer, for dragons in the same sequence. And the scene feels completely chaotic. There's no neat little superhero-style battle where everyone understands what's happening. These are enormous animals with their own instincts, and the danger comes from the fact that nobody can fully control what they're going to do. That's what makes dragon scenes in this show work when they're at their best. They're not just weapons, they're animals. And when multiple dragons are in the same space, everything can go wrong in seconds. But while Rhaenyra is dealing with dragons, the Greens are facing their own disaster. At Tumbleton, Ulf makes his decision. And this is where the episode quietly sets up one of the biggest betrayals of the entire war. Ulf has always been unpredictable. He doesn't have the discipline or loyalty of someone like Daemon or Rhaenyra. He has a dragon. He has power. And now he's realizing that he can use that power for himself. And that's terrifying. Because once ordinary people gain access to dragons, the rules of the Targaryen war completely change. Then we get Aegon. And honestly, this might be the best Aegon moment of the season. For most of the story, Aegon has been broken down physically and emotionally. He was burned, injured, and humiliated. Everyone around him assumed that his story was basically over. Then Sunfire returns, and the reaction on Aegon's face says everything. It's almost childlike. After everything that happened to him, he sees his dragon again, and suddenly, the man who looked completely defeated has a reason to fight. But this reunion doesn't stay emotional for long. Sunfire unleashes exactly what everyone knows dragons are capable of. The attack at Tumbleton becomes brutal, chaotic, and horrifying. And suddenly Aegon isn't just a wounded king trying to survive. He's dangerous again. That's the moment I realize the war has entered a completely different phase. Because Aegon doesn't need to be the strongest person in the room anymore. He just needs one dragon. Meanwhile, Aemon's storyline gets darker. He's already becoming increasingly isolated, and his relationship with Alicent has completely deteriorated. But what happens between them in this episode makes it clear that Alicent understands something important. Her son isn't simply fighting for the Greens anymore. He's becoming a threat to everyone around him. And that's why Alicent's decision against Aemon is so shocking. She's not trying to win the war. She's trying to stop her own son from destroying what's left of her family. But even that may be too late. And then we return to Rhaenyra. Her relationship with Mysaria becomes increasingly complicated, and her desperation pushes her toward choices she probably wouldn't have made earlier in the story. Then she makes another major decision. She sends Rhaena away, and she also pushes Daemon further out of her plans. That's the tragedy of Rhaenyra's character right now. She has spent so much of her life trying to prove that she deserves the throne. But the closer she gets to actually taking it, the more isolated she becomes. And then there's the final reveal. The Greens have been operating with information that Rhaenyra didn't fully understand. Someone inside the Black Camp has been helping Ormond Hightower. And the identity of that spy changes the meaning of several events we've already watched. Suddenly, the Green Army's confidence makes sense. Suddenly, their movements don't seem quite as random. And suddenly, Tumbleton doesn't feel like another battle. It feels like a trap that has been waiting for the right moment. That's what makes episode 7 work. It's not really about who wins. It's about watching every character move closer to a point where there is no way back. Rhaenyra is becoming more ruthless. Aegon is becoming dangerous again. Aemond is losing control. Helaena is seeing something terrible coming. Rhaena finally has a dragon, and the dragons themselves are becoming impossible to contain. By the time the episode ends, you're not sitting there wondering whether the finale will be big. You're wondering how much of this world is going to survive it. And honestly, that's the biggest thing I took away from episode 7. The Dance of the Dragons is no longer a war between two sides. It's becoming a war where everyone is losing something. Families, dragons, loyalty, and eventually, perhaps, the kingdom itself. So now I'm genuinely nervous about the finale. Because after everything episode 7 just set up, I don't think we're getting a quiet ending. Who shocked you the most in episode 7 Aegon? Rhaena, Helaena, Aemond, or Rhaenyra?